over to you for your report.
Okay, well, I won't take too long. I only now realize that the provost is not going to be on the agenda today. So there were several items that I was counting on him to cover because he's been most involved in them, but we'll see where this goes. I want to join Chris in just saying I do hope the beginning of the semester has gone well. There's been a lot going on, and I realize there are a lot of things on people's minds. Um, it's great to have the students back. And they're certainly, January always, we hit the ground running no matter whether there's been a transition at the federal level or not. So, a lot of things added on to what is normally a very, very busy time on our campus. Um, and I say that because, of course, our state legislature is in session. This is a year of a 60-day session, and there's a great deal happening up at the legislature and in Santa Fe. And so we have a government relations team that is already hard at work. A group of us were there for the opening session last Tuesday. And that's always a great day of getting started and a lot of optimism about where things are going to go. But then the real work begins. We do have some major projects that are in front of the legislature, and we've got some really important legislation that some of which we'll have to monitor carefully because of its potential impact. But of course, our humanities and social sciences complex request for funding, School of Pharmacy, designed for the replacement of Fitz Hall, but a lot of other things. And so I hope that we can get a thorough update of where things stand at the next Senate meeting. But just know, and I'm sure many of you are aware, that there are a lot of things being discussed, a lot of things being monitored, a lot of feedback being given, what we call the fiscal impact report that we're being asked to fill out. So we're doing already involved in a lot of things. Um, there are things like hazing legislation, a couple of competing bills, perhaps. I don't know if they'll be competing or not. There are things related to, hospitals and healthcare and Board of Regents and how they're um, uh, the kind of training that's required. And some of the things that are going on are related to some things that have happened in higher education in New Mexico recently. I know that I recently discovered that not everyone is aware of some of the challenges that have been happening related to higher ed and boards of regents. But we have had something that's been very controversial at Western New Mexico. And so I will be in this legislative session, not only representing UNM, but I'll be stepping in to chair the Council of Presidents, which is the group of presidents for the four-year schools. And so that group routinely is in front of the Senate once, during the session, in front of Senate Finance, in front of Higher Education, in front of the House Appropriations Committee. And so those meetings are set coming up in early February. And I will be, of course, representing UNM. Tomorrow is a big day at the Capitol. It is, in fact, UNM Day, and that's the day when everybody is really nice to the University of New Mexico. So it's always a nice day to be at the Capitol. Now, since we met, and I realize it's been a while since I've been at a Senate meeting, um, I've made a number of appointments, one of which I announced last week, which was the appointment of Mike Richards as the Executive Vice President for Health Sciences and CEO of our hospital system. I will say that I have talked to and received a massive amount of information from people um, uh, urging me to appoint Mike in this role. And it's been quite a ride. You might remember that I appointed Mike as on an interim basis back in August. And we have some major initiatives going forward. And Mike has the trust of many people, both internally and externally to the institution. So I will say that after gathering all this feedback and hearing from so many people internally and externally, I realized that it was in the best interest of the university that I go ahead and appoint Mike and remove that kind of uncertainty around someone who's in an interim status. I see that we will benefit, I think, as an institution from that kind of leadership. And interesting too, I say one of the messages I heard from so many that I talked to was, a desire for stability, that there's been a great deal of change, a great deal of kind of anxiety around so much that's happening related to health. And the projects that we're working on have the potential of such impact with regard to the expansion of the healthcare workforce and substance use, and then the research mission, et cetera. So I'm really, really pleased that to have Dr. Richards in that role, and glad that it's official and that we can move forward knowing that he's the one leading the health sciences. I've also hired a new athletic director. Fern Lovo was announced, I think, certainly since the last time I was in front of the Senate. We also, of course, needed to hire a new football coach, and I'll be introducing both of them at the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce, where we're really going to talk about what's happening in athletics and how athletics at a university like ours can benefit the local and state economy and the ways in which it brings attention, and you hope it's good attention, to states. And so that'll be an interesting conversation. There is a great deal going on with athletics, and I think there's value to spending a little time perhaps talking explicitly about what some of the things are that are coming in athletics. I know there may be people here who have the benefit of going to the budget leadership team meeting. Those meetings have been taking place. There was a conversation about the athletics at the BLT meeting last week. And there's a lot for us to think about and consider. And so I know that we'll be having future conversations about it. I've hired a new general counsel, Daniel Jones from Florida Atlantic. He'll be starting on February 24th. And then I mentioned at the December Board of Regents meeting, I kind of said goodbye to Rob Schwartz, who's been one of our board members. Many of you will likely know that he is a retired emeritus faculty member from our School of Law. And I knew that he was going off the board. And I said farewell to him at the last board meeting in my presentation, and then found out on the 2nd of January or the 3rd of January that, in fact, the governor was going to be making 2 new appointments of Board of Regents members. So 2 new regents were named, Christina Campos and Patricia Williams. I believe both are alums. One is in healthcare, one is an attorney from our graduated from our School of Law. Now they'll replace Regent Kim Sanchez Real and then Rob Schwartz. Excuse me. It seems like I was doing this about 3 months ago, but not for the same reasons.
I don't know. I think it has something to do with the first faculty senate meeting of the semester, because I was just trying to figure out how my audio works, and I've done this how many times now?
Okay, so another big story, we have our first Rhodes Scholar in many, many years at the University of New Mexico. Brianna Morales just graduated back in May of 2023. She was a Truman Scholar and one of only 32 Rhodes Scholars selected this year. So we're always proud when our students can do so well. We also had our GO bonds pass. You think you probably know that. And I know you probably also, those of you who hang around Central Campus know that we're doing a lot of work at the Duck Pond, even though it wasn't funded by GO bonds. There's definitely some money that is going into that pond to make it a cleaner and nicer and safer place for everybody, including the ducks and the turtles and the other wildlife around there. We got the mill levy for the UNM hospital. We learned in December that we've been designated as a Fulbright Hispanic serving institution leader for the 4th year in a row. And we're only one of only 51 schools in the nation with that distinction. And then UNM Gives, the UNM Big Give will start on February 12th. You'll probably see more about that. And we're always looking for participation so that people can donate during a 24-hour period, can donate to any program, any school, any college. And that collective support really ends up benefiting a large number of programs, many of which I suspect are dear to members of the Faculty Senate. There are other things I could talk about, but I just want to go back to something I hinted at. I know there's a great deal of uncertainty with many of the executive orders and communications that we're getting that have a direct impact on many of our faculty, our staff, our students. I mentioned in my President's Weekly Perspective yesterday that we're creating, 4, we call them task forces. I'm not sure we'll keep the label task forces, but we're forming 4 groups that will focus on immigration policy implications, research funding impacts, patient care issues, and inclusive excellence. And we're building out those right now. The provost and some others have been busy trying to identify the leaders. And what we really want, we're really looking at rapid response teams. We'll have a legal person from legal on each one of these, in each of these groups, because what we're doing is pulling together as quickly as we can an assessment of everything that's coming our way, recognizing that, we have people with federal funding, we have a lot of different ways higher education can be affected by some of the changes that take place. And of course, every time there is a transition in presidential leadership, there's a flurry of things that happen that can lead things to go one direction or another. I think that this is an unusual flurry of activity. I think that, my understanding is, I would urge kind of calm and we're going to look at everything we possibly can and see what might happen. It wouldn't surprise me if there are a lot of things end up caught up in court in some way, that our attorney generals across the states in the country may attempt to block some of the efforts. And I think of most concern, is the extent to which, the false information, rumors, speculation can really fuel the kind of uncertainty and fear that people are experiencing. And I just want to assure you that our goal is to get you the information when we have it, to not spend too much time speculating, because we need to deal with the facts. And we really want to be sure that we're serving our students and our faculty in the best way possible as we navigate some of this, some of the uncertainty about, executive orders and messages, et cetera. So we will be sharing a lot more information in the days ahead as we gather more information. But an awful lot of things are going to be, what does this mean? And then kind of wait and see. We know that we want to protect our research programs. We know we want to protect, we want to do right by our faculty, staff, and students and our community. So recognizing that, there are many perspectives about the things that are going on. We know that we are in a very diverse environment with people with very diverse views about, what the right policy should be at the federal level, et cetera. We are going to focus on those things that matter to to the University of New Mexico. And so, yeah, more to come. And this was where I didn't know James wouldn't be here, and he's got some things he's specifically working on right now. Um, but I'll just stop there and go ahead and say, as soon as we know something that is definitive, I promise you that we will let you know. And there are many readers that are going to be part of this mix and recognize how important this is and are gathering what those questions are. So with that, I'll just open it up for Chris. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure. If you have a question for President Stokes, if you could use your little hand, it'll put you first in line. It'll be easy for me to see who has a question. You might have to remember how to do that. Okay. I guess this gives you more time, President Stokes, to get ready for Santa Fe.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I look forward to seeing all of you and sharing with you all the good and that we're able to do in Santa Fe and the things we're able to do for our community. So thank you for what y'all do.
Thanks so
Really
much for being
appreciate it.
here.
You bet. Take care, everybody.
You too. Um, I wanted to start my own president's report by acknowledging I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have received the news that our colleague in the political science department, Mala Tun, passed away. I believe it was on Friday, at 55 as a result of cancer. And so I'm putting in the chat an announcement on her passing and the memorial service that will follow. I have also reached out to the political science department and invited one of her colleagues to come and speak on the incredible work that she did as a part of UNM's faculty. Next, I want to, if not that what I just said is any less significant, but I want to make sure those of you who are listening with your cameras off and, possibly trying to do two things at one time, this next topic is really dear to my heart. So I want to make sure everybody's listening, even if your politics don't align with mine. So those of you, if you're new to UNM, you might not be aware, but I know a number of you will be and have done this work. About 8 years ago, we implemented the Sanctuary Campus Working Group. So students, faculty, and staff were working to get information out about our documented and undocumented students, their families, and our communities. So I wanted to let you know that we reconvened the group. And so I'm going to share with you in the chat the Sanctuary UNM Sanctuary Campus website. And we also have a listserv. Feel free to reach out to me directly and I will add you to that listserv. There is also a form that you can fill out under Get Involved on that campus website. And I invite you to use a personal email address, which is what we usually do because we are communicating with vulnerable populations. And our personal emails cannot be IPRA'd. So we prefer to stay off unm.edu when we can. In relation to the sanctuary campus, I wanted to let you know that we're working with the ACLU in order to conduct Know Your Rights trainings. If you're unfamiliar with these trainings, basically it teaches faculty, staff, students, community members, not only what one's rights are in terms of immigration, ICE, possible detention, but it also teaches us as allies how to advocate for the most vulnerable among us, and also how to, what information we can communicate that is not speculation or guesswork, but information that we should feel confident sharing with our communities. I also wanted to share with you in relation to this. Well, I should mention first. One of the things that you'll also notice on the UNM Sanctuary campus website that I put in the chat, the last tab on the right is an allies list, and we'll be updating that list. But it's a list of faculty who our community members can identify as people who, well, just what it says, right? It's an allies list. These are people that our community members can go and talk to about where to get more information or what to be concerned about. Or at the same time, we try to, by getting out relevant information, try to, when we can, of course, tamp down the fear. We don't want to put anybody into a panic. We just want to make sure, that we do right by our communities and we communicate the information that they might need. I also want to share with you this related website called Frontieristas. I just put that in the chat. And two of the co-founders of Frontieristas are our colleagues, Bernadine Hernandez, and I just blanked on Suhan's last name, which is why I'm scrambling all of a sudden. Let me see. Suhan Ho. Suhan is in the art department, and Bernadine is my colleague in the English department. And as you can see from the website, what the Frontieristas, what their goal is to use art and visuals, installations in order to protest, in order to challenge detention of individuals, in response, again, serving as allies to our community members. So they will be, actually, I will say they use art and quote disruption. So they'll also be organizing events. One event I can think of from last time was they were downtown at night in the streets, um, chanting loudly over bullhorns so that the individuals detained downtown could hear could hear them um, outside the walls. To know, sorry, sorry guys, to know that they're not alone. Um, I also want to share with you an organization. There are lots of organizations. I'm just speaking on the ones that I've worked with. There and also VITA. VITA is also led by one of our faculty colleagues, and the goal of VITA, some of the things we've done in the past is visit various detention centers. Cibola used to house um, transgender folk, specifically. So, visiting people in detention. There's also a letter writing campaign. And again, the idea is to let people know that they're not alone. I saw somebody had their hand up. I don't know if you had a question about anything around this issue, but of course, I'll also give you all a chance to ask questions if you'd like. Um, Earlier well, I guess Friday or Monday, I had the pleasure of meeting one-on-one with Mike Richards. For those of you, in case you don't know, the Faculty Senate president has the opportunity once a month. The Faculty Senate president meets one-on-one with President Stokes, meets one-on-one with Provost Holloway, and it's one of the places where the Faculty Senate president can advocate on behalf of all your concerns and those of others. And so I have added Mike Richards to that list of conversations. Um, I know that my work with him is in a different capacity than some of yours, but I've been really impressed by what a warm, approachable person he is and what a good listener he is. So, for example, oh, and I should just say too, he has agreed to come to a faculty senate meeting this semester so he can introduce himself and maybe tell you about some of his goals and priorities. But one of the first things that he and I talked about, and I felt like as soon as we hung up, he was, of course, this is a very busy person with lots of responsibilities, but I felt like as soon as we hung up, he was ready to march out and go find out the answer to my question. And our president-elect, Faculty Senate President-elect Roberta Levin brought to my attention, as did Natalie Adolfi, Senator present here, that there's sort of a RAC no grant land for our colleagues, specifically in the College of English, College of Pharmacy, and Population Health. So whereas those of us working on Central Campus, um, a lot of, and the branches, I believe, a lot of the grants that we receive, the RAC grants that we receive are funded by Ellen Fisher's office, the VP of Research. That's where the money comes from, but of course it's a Faculty Senate committee that assigns those grants. And the School of Medicine has its own RAC grants. However, those of you probably know, nursing, pharmacy, population health are not included. While they are HSC, they're not included in the School of Medicine. So these colleagues don't necessarily have access to RAC grants, neither from Central Campus nor School of Medicine or HSC. So Mike is looking into that for us. I also talked to Ellen Fisher about it to make sure. She also gave me additional people in HSC to talk to. I'll also be speaking to the deans of those programs in order to get more answers, because it could depend on a funding source. I also wanted to point out for you that, again, our Faculty Senate President-elect, Roberta Lavin, brought up an excellent point at the recent budget leadership team meeting, in that you may be aware that in the Faculty Senate, we do have a budget committee, and that budget committee meets with representatives from schools to talk about the budget at Central Campus. However, in those budget leadership team meetings, HSC is usually not discussed, nor typically are the branches, because it's such a different funding model. But Roberta, thank you for raising the important point that the budget for HSC, which affects faculty represented by this Senate, don't really have a voice or an opportunity for input on that budget. So I imagine that's just, that's one thing that we'll begin working on this semester, but it also just reminds me that I'm really excited about the new perspective and the new areas of thought that Roberta is going to bring to the Senate. I believe I'm way over time. So let me go back to my agenda. And colleagues, the next item, oh, sorry, I should ask, is there anybody have any questions? Oh, did I say College of English? That's terrible. I did mean College of Nursing. My own mother is an RN, so nursing has a very important place in my heart. So no, I don't mean any slight on nursing. Thank you, Roberta. And Michelle, I will get you all the Vita link. I'll put that in the chat. Oh, thank you, Rosanna. I appreciate that. Colleagues, agenda item number 5. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Chris, I made a poll for that if we need to.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. So Roberta moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Caroline Scruggs.
Thanks, Caroline. Nice to have you back.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Any additions, deletions, not additions, any questions about the consent agenda?
Sorry,
Nancy's like, don't touch that consent agenda.
Sorry, I lunged that a little quickly. Sorry about that, but
You
That's
can touch
okay.
it all you want, but unless somebody needs to pull something off, and we can pull the poll if you would
Yeah.
like.
Any questions? Any questions about the consent agenda? No? Okay. Teresa has very helpfully posted the poll for us, so please vote up, down, or abstain from the items listed in that consent agenda that were sent out previously. Can you all see it? Okay.
I think so. We're at 75%.
Oh, okay, good.
100% yes. So
Okay. Okay, good.
We got it for anybody who can vote.
very
So.
good.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
So, one of the other items that I've been talking to a lot of people about on campus is the potential of the equitable access program. And I'm getting way ahead of myself. Sorry, Shauna. One of the things in my role as faculty senate president is, I think you've all heard me talk up VP of Institutional Support Services, Shauna Wolf, before, because I'm just so impressed with her purview on campus, the portfolio of things she's in charge of. Many of you might have received alerts, I think it was this weekend, that the Cornell parking garage was flooding. So that's just one of the many things that Shauna takes care of for us, including, measuring UNM sustainability in terms of where we get our electricity from, for example. And I just found out, correct me if I'm wrong, Shauna, I think we make our own electricity or energy 54%,
Yes.
which was interesting to learn. But I've asked Shauna to come and talk to the Senate today so you could learn more about what she does, and so that she could also highlight for you all current projects that her office and her team is working on. Shauna, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for this time to spend with all of you. And I had a little bit of time last week with the operations committee. So for those of you that participate in this is a little bit of a repeat, but I'm honored just to have a little bit of time with you to share with you some of the work that I've been working on here. So I'm going to attempt to share and see if that works out okay. Are you seeing my screen okay here? Great. Well, I'm a visual person, so I'll use visuals to help with my story here. So again, thank you for the time. I have the pleasure of serving, as Chris shared, as the Vice President for Institutional Support Services. And that is a large portfolio that I will share with you in a minute. I just want to highlight our mission at ISS, which is really working with stakeholders and partners across the campus on the experience, bringing people, resources, places together. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means as we go through our engagement. But I thought I'd share a little bit of background on myself first. As Chris mentioned, I believe I've been at UNM a little bit over a year. I joined in December of 2023. And I've had a chance to meet with many folks across the campus, but especially working with my large and diverse team. I'm a first generation student. I'm still, I think I shared with the group last week, in my family, which was quite a large family. I'm the oldest of 5, and my dad had 7 siblings and my mom 4. I'm still the only person in my entire family that has graduated from higher education, and that's about to change in another year when all of our kids graduate. But I share that for the perspective of where I grew up in Southeast Ohio. I was born and raised there and lived there my entire life until I joined UNM for this amazing opportunity here. In my career, I started the first 8 years in interpretive museum planning. I worked with a consulting firm where we did large-scale, multi-million-dollar immersive experiences across the United States. My first adventure out west was in Casper, Wyoming for the National Historic Trails Center. And we really started that project from the beginning of a twinkle in somebody's eye for the idea to the implementation and the opening of that place. After that, I made a career move to Ohio University. Bobcats, is anybody familiar with Ohio University in Athens, Ohio in this team? I can't see the hands because I'm presenting, but that's where I grew up in my career. I had progressively increasing roles in my 20 years there, and really played a large impact on the strategic direction of the physical campus and the way that we thought about our capital plan, our physical campus, its strategic alignment with a significant focus on our academic and our student needs, and how our place really ensured the success of that. So here I am today with that experience behind me, and also a year of engaging with my team. And I thought we would share a little bit of what we've been up to in our year. As Chris shared the statistics, she got it from this, but we have many slides like this that we share when we're presenting at the state, at the Legislative Finance Committee, or for our capital plan, just helping people have a perspective of who we are. This is just a few fun facts that we've been collecting, and we love, as I told you, my museum background, we love telling stories and ensuring people see the campus in numbers, which helps understand the investment level that we have at this campus and what we need to keep in the back of our minds to serve and ensure we have a mixed use, lively environment for our students, for you as faculty members and others to engage in. So just a few facts here, but I'd be happy to share the plethora of these fun graphics that we have that we've been sharing across the board. One of the things I liked talking about before I get into specifics of what we've been up to is the planning approach that I take and the leadership style that I am deploying here at UNM. And first and foremost, it is a transparent process that's inclusive of all facets. This is a slide that we specifically used in our capital plan process to help our state who had not been used to a plan that was integrated across all of the university understand how we all came together last summer. We had Dr. Richards and his team, we had athletics, we had the provost area, we had the branch campus all sitting at a table unified as we presented the university priorities, and that was just a pleasure to get to introduce. And beyond the capital plan, I deploy that approach in my engagement as we take on initiatives. So that's one element that helps with the success in our organization. Another is really understanding how you can get to an implementation state. Sometimes people say, okay, I want to build a building, or I want to deploy this student project, or whatever it may be. And one of the things that we try to understand is what is our university-wide strategy and goals that we have? What is behind your academic plan for your colleges, the direction that we want to go, our values and importance. My team is, in my approach on any project that I take on, is understanding, okay, with that strategy in mind, what is the physical long-range plan or the other strategic plans, whether it be safety, accessibility, or other pieces to get there. But before you can go to implementation, that gray bar that you have in the middle is sometimes conducting studies to understand all the different ways you might be able to accomplish that and ensure that stakeholders are informed about those different pathways and culminating to a mutual decision on how we move forward before we move into implementation. And part of the reason that that is important is sometimes we're implementing things that people aren't all aware of or didn't have a chance to at least look at options before we move forward. So one of the approaches that we are building and implementing. So I mentioned ISS is a large organization. This is an example of all the groups that report through my role. My role is fairly new for UNM. Prior to a year and 2 months ago when I joined, ISS did not have a vice president level role. It had 2 associate vice presidents that rolled up through Teresa, the EVP. The goal that Teresa had and the leadership team had in putting this role in was to unify not only this group of units within ISS, but also to work with campus stakeholders on their needs and realign our teams to ensure we're delivering. Those units that are in red are predominantly auxiliaries with a caveat of staff council, which is red because it reports to the AVP that oversees these areas, Alicia Solano. And then in green are predominantly our campus environment and facilities groups. The turquoise are Lobo Development and Lobo Energy, the separate ARPADAs that we have. Orange is the groups that support the Vice President office. And then additionally, New Mexico PBS and Residence Life and Student Housing is within this portfolio. So I want to talk a little bit about changes. Some of you may have heard of some of the changes that we've been deploying. First starting with this group that's at the top, Campus Capital and Space Planning, Facilities Design and Construction, and Facilities Management. One of the first things that we recognized when I came in was the need to have more robust strategic planning for the institution and to align that with capital and space. And so we made a move to align planning from the design and construction group along with the capital and space, and created a role there, and then dedicated a role to design and construction. And both of those directors have strong workflow plans to build up those groups and help unify processes across the campus. Additionally, we've been undertaking a large facilities management strategy assessment. It's the largest organization we have with over 300 staff members, and really they touch upon probably every facet that each of you are embedded within in the campus. We are really trying to understand our service levels, our funding, our FTE, and really setting a new pathway out for them, and are in the process of hiring a new associate vice president to help lead that team. And then with that new AVP, the facilities design and construction and utility services for the built environment would be deployed. As Chris mentioned in our opening remarks, there's been little changes and big changes in the area of marketing and communications, updated newsletters about what we have going on, but also trying to help ensure that the campus is aware of events that happen, whether they be emergencies like the parking garage water issue, or proactive management of projects that are coming on. And then lastly, in March, we designated a new director of sustainability, had a dedicated sustainability office, and Ann Jekyll, who was selected for that, has been engaging across the campus on several things, which we'll report out on in a moment. So just a few of the changes. For facilities management, I mentioned a strategic assessment. This is just an example of the thought and team that's put into really reviewing facilities management, and I'll just speak to the orange section that we have here in the assessment process. We're really focused on the financial sustainability of this operation, also its effectiveness and alignment with what the campus needs and what we can afford with the resources that we have allocated, and how do we help the workforce with their needs moving forward. So we're wrapping that assessment up. We are in flight with reviewing candidates, and they'll be on campus, and I invite you all to participate in open forums and provide feedback to us. We have 3 candidates that we'll bring on board in the second and third week of February. The other thing that we do is support our EVP, Teresa Constantinides, with the tactics associated with the presidential goals. So ISS has several within that plan. So we're focused on business and operational effectiveness, really looking at those auxiliary units and looking at the financial health and efficiency of those operations. Examples would be golf course, bookstore, facilities management falls within that as an example. In Goal 4 sustainability, we were successful in having approval of the integrated campus plan, but this year our goals are implementing recommendations within that plan, such as looking at our asset management as a whole, our land use, safety and mobility as just a few examples of what teams are working on there. And then with respect to promoting environmental sustainability, Ann Jekyll, our Director of Sustainability, has really been working on awareness and engagement, as well as conducting many plans such as the greenhouse gas emissions submission to STARS, which you may have seen in the presidential newsletter this week of our silver rating, and we're currently developing a sustainability plan. Just a couple of updates on the auxiliaries units. We've got different units focused on different initiatives, as I've expressed here, from Pope Joy and the Broadway for Teens programs. In parking, we're looking at ways to support a lot of projects that are being undertaken here as we expand on the North Campus, and we think about other things that are happening. There's a lot of work we need to do there, and if I've heard the most complaints about anything, it would be parking, and that would be true for anybody in my position, no matter what university you are in. And it's something that I'm extremely interested in focusing on in this next year. But a couple of specific updates. One on golf courses. We have been focused on a study here to understand the championship golf course how to help it be self-sustaining, but also to support the athletics programs that we have here, and just really look at opportunities with land assets and such. So we don't have any findings yet, but we'll be moving forward with really analyzing this and looking at the capital needs that we have here as one example. And then our food program has had a number of things going on that you might have read about or even engaged with, from the transfer of our vendor to Aramark and that transition. And then the blue box in the middle, you will see upcoming renovations that are planned through that contract, as well as programmatic updates. But some of the fun things that we've been doing that are near and dear to my heart is ensuring benefits such as SNAP are available on our campus, partnering with any of those of you who are involved in food insecurity partnerships. We've had expansion of services such as the delivery bots, just experimenting on how to connect resources to the campus, but also programs like the Lobo Eats. Sarita Hargis has been an amazing partner on that, and just a few examples of things they've been involved in. On the campus environment sides, as well as PBS and housing, there's a lot going on here always. I think you probably see us at the board getting approval on projects on a regular basis. I'll highlight a couple of things in visual slides on the right. You can see this, and these slides will be available to you, and of course follow-up questions can happen, but to get to other agenda items, I'll move forward. We've implemented an asset management process that ensures that we have a unified process across the entire campus and our branch campuses for our land use priorities, for our capital plan prioritization process, for our space allocation, and then a new one, which is a campus design review committee. And all four of these subgroups in gray report up to an asset management committee that's tri-chaired by the provost, by Teresa, the EVP, and Dr. Richards. And then that rolls up to the president for approval, as well as to the board for those that meet the board requirement. So this is launched last year, and it's really helping unification of the campus assets and transparency across the system. We're working on fun projects in our utility services, Lobo, and sustainability offices with looking at geothermal. We have some really bright, innovative leaders in this space who have engineered a new way of thinking about geothermal that could offset the project cost by 40 million, and really looking at the ability to transfer from natural gas to electricity. The bore field would be up in the North Golf Course area, and we've done the engineering studies, and now it's time to think about whether there's funding and appetite to fund a project like this to be able to move it forward. In the sustainability office, I mentioned the STARS and the greenhouse gas inventory, but we're also undertaking a sustainability plan, and there's a variety of focus groups and phases to culminate at the end of this year with a focus plan on what our priorities will be in the next few years. We've also been focusing on the Lomas corridor, as I mentioned, the North Campus and Health Sciences with Dr. Richards and the initiatives that the School of Medicine and hospital have. We've been thinking about the integration between Central Campus and North, the roadway improvements, the plans that support the enabling projects to move these and advance this forward, as well as the mixed use 24/7 life enhancements that we can do along the corridor. Particularly in this area that you see here, which was a part of our integrated campus plan. This is an example of mixed use. Ours might look different, but really trying to enliven the corridor where there's been some vacant areas, and really parking, and really create a new front door and experience in this area. And I mentioned the School of Medicine project. This was a slide that we did last year at HED, but really this is key drivers as these go along the corridor of being able to rethink this and think about the investments holistically. An example of my team's work in the campus capital area is looking at where that building goes and where we'd relocate it, and looking at metrics and statistics about how we could offset costs to help afford it. So I could go in more detail, but that's just a little sample of what I've been working on, and I want to open it up for questions if you want to do that, Chris, or go from there.
Anyone? I want to, give you all a chance to at least pose a couple of questions. I know one of our presenters, it's my fault that we're running behind schedule, and I have packed this agenda But one of our presenters will have to leave by a certain time later on because in order to pick up um, a young child. But I do want to give you all a chance to ask Shauna a couple of questions and give Shauna a chance to respond to you all about anything that's Svetlana.
I would like to hear more about what is going on or planning to happen to the building where uh, Center for Advanced Research Computing is currently located, because there are talks about demolition of this building, but Center for Advanced Research Computing is such a large asset for our research. So I would like to know where it goes.
I can answer that quickly and then I can follow up to save time. So that building is on the Central Avenue. So we nickname it the Carsey Building. And we are currently working on a near-term plan for relocation of the data center. So there's a team between real estate and research that are helping find space for that. And then from a capital perspective, we still have a future priority in the capital plan for consideration for a replacement facility before the building once vacated. There is a vision placed there. It's within our TID district, which is our tax increment financing district, that the board has prioritized for revenue generation to put back into the system. And there's a mixed use plan that is placed there with no intention for demolition, but actually repurposed because of the history of some of that building. So we'll see how that all plays out as we work through the drawings, but I can give a master plan sketch and a little bit more details on the near-term solution as a follow-up to this conversation. Thank you for that question.
Thanks, Shauna. Any other questions? Grace.
Hi, I just have a very brief comment. I have students that do a community health needs assessment in one of my nursing courses, and they do micro level communities, typically about a square mile. They usually like to choose main campus, and they always point out that there's no SNAP grocers in that area. So I'm super excited to see we're bringing SNAP grocers to campus because that's one thing they cite as an intervention over and over.
That was one of the reasons the team selected Aramark for their interest in supporting those initiatives that our team, Amanda and Alicia, have wanted to champion. So we're excited about that, and we're excited to also think about the food deserts that we have and what more we can do to help with that. Thank you, Grace.
And also just, you know, in response to Professor Sarita Kargas' research, it's also, of course, faculty and staff who will benefit from that as well. Yeah, in addition to students. So that's great. And if I'm not wrong, Shauna, I just met Amanda in the sub. I think it was late last week. And I believe the rollout for SNAP in the store downstairs in the sub on the first floor. And then there's that like a little convenience store, and then the little convenience store across the way from La Posada by the student dorms. I believe it's already ready and rolled out in those locations. Is that your understanding?
I believe it is, but we have Alicia here who could give the best
Oh.
update on that.
Okay. Okay. And on that, I better transition. So if you'll see item 7 on our agenda. Thank you, Shauna. Item 7 on our agenda is Equitable Access Program. And we had a presentation on this at the Senate in spring 2024, but I think Alicia will agree that a lot has changed since that time. And we have Alicia, and maybe Lisa is here from the bookstore, and then also Professor Jennifer Jordan from the library. And I want to let you know, senators, and those also present, that the advantage of being faculty senate president is I get to run around campus and meet with all these different people and get all of my questions answered. And so I just want to say that Lisa, Alicia, and Jennifer have all been so generous with me with their time. And every time I have a question, I shoot it off to them and they respond. So I'm really happy to have them here so that you all can have a better understanding of what UNM is looking into. And I believe our questions also help inform and make the program stronger. So I want to begin with you, Alicia, and your presentation on equitable access, and then we'll transition to Jennifer.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. Let me make sure it's the right screen. Okay. And now I'm going to see if I can do it in presentation mode. So you have to let me know if this works.
You got it.
I got it. Okay. Good, good, good. Okay. Alrighty. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia Solano, and I'm the Assistant Vice President for Campus Business Services within Institutional Support Services. So I report to Shauna. And here with me today is Lisa Walden, who is our Director of UNM Bookstores. So she is here to also help answer questions that you might have. So to start, why are we here today? Well, to answer that question, we need to take a step back and look through the evolution of course materials on campus. And since its founding in 1889, the University of New Mexico primarily relied on printed textbooks for course materials. And then over the decades, as the UNM bookstore shifted locations, one thing stayed pretty much the same, in that there was this need for space to house all those physical textbooks. But now, about a decade ago, we started to see a national shift in how course materials were delivered, moving increasingly towards digital formats like ebooks and inclusive access. And as these new formats have gained momentum, the role of printed textbooks has begun to decline. So now, course materials are easier to obtain through online access, reducing overall costs and need to carry physical textbook for our students. And with that, we are excited to introduce a new chapter in course materials delivery that will allow students to have an even easier way to find what works best for their budget and unique needs. And with that, that program is Equitable Access. And so an overview of our presentation today, a couple of things that we'll go over, what is equitable access? Why does it matter? The current state of course materials delivery at the UNM bookstore, and a little bit of background on our EA journey. And then I'll share UNM's planned EA program for a fall 2025 launch. And then we'll do a quick recap and next steps. So, how are course materials delivered today? Well, we still have printed books in new, used, and rental formats, but as I already shared, that's become less and less. We also have inclusive access, or IA for short, and we've had IA at UNM since 2015, and it continues to grow. The program is done on a course-by-course basis and provides affordable day one access to digital course materials to our students. And then there's OER, Open Educational Resources, and those are teaching, learning, and research resources available to the public for free use. And what we're talking about today is equitable access. And it's a program that bridges all these models to bring ease and choice to students and to faculty. So as far as what it is, there are a couple of different definitions nationally, but what we're going to do is we're going to share our definition, the definition we are using here at the University of New Mexico. So EA is a program that provides all Albuquerque campus undergraduate students day one access to all their required course materials for a flat rate each semester. And so some key features to this is that the program can can include digital, print, and open resources. Unlike inclusive access, we couldn't include print. So this is a way for us to include this in a program. Faculty choose the course materials and formats they want to use for each course. So faculty freedom is still preserved. You still get to choose whatever materials you want, print, digital, and of course, wherever you want to, whatever publisher or materials you want to use. There will also be opt-out options available for flexibility. And then all the required course materials will be bundled together at one low price. So why does EA matter? Well, EA is a university-wide initiative that has benefits that align with UNM's 2040 goals. So specifically, goal number 2, student experience and educational innovation. Goal number 3, inclusive excellence. And then goal number 4, sustainability. And these benefits include affordability. So participating students have access to all their required course materials for one low cost per semester. Equity and accessibility. So all students, regardless of their background, personal demographics, or degree program, have access to their required course materials. Student success and retention. So research has shown that students who have immediate access to their course materials are more likely to engage in their coursework, participate in class discussions, and perform well in assessments. Predictability. A flat rate model provides predictable pricing to help students budget for course materials each semester. Sustainability. So while EA can still include print materials, it is a digital first model, which helps eliminate thousands of textbooks from being printed and shipped from publishers. And then lastly, convenience. All required digital course materials will automatically be available for students on or before the first day of class in their Canvas account. So now let's just dive a little bit deeper into some of those benefits. So equity and inclusion. EA programs remove financial and logistical barriers, ensuring that every student has all required course materials on or before the first day of class. In a recent study on course completion rates with EA programs, there was improved completion rates across demographics, and you'll see that here with almost 21% increase in one of the demographics shown. Positive academic impact and convenience. I apologize, I need to get some water. A recent study of over 100 campuses across 2- and 4-year institutions did the survey to gauge student perspectives on their own campus's EA program. And what they found, and I won't read all of them, I'll just do some highlights. 86% of students in EA programs stated that they were better prepared for their term. 75% reported that these programs helped them achieve better grades. And then 91% of students stated that they found EA programs convenient due to bundled and automatically delivered materials. And then just one more, student support for EA programs. In a 2024 Student Watch survey conducted by the National Association of College Stores, most students had expressed satisfaction with the EA program that their campus had, noting that the integrated cost model reduced logistical challenges and improved their overall experience. So 79% said there was convenience, that there was, their top reasons for satisfaction included convenience, having access to all their materials on the first day, and then knowing that they would have all their materials in the correct edition and the cost savings. All right, just a quick background here, current state of course materials. So at the UNM bookstore, we saw just in the last fiscal year a major increase in course materials being purchased in digital format. So 74% of materials that were sold in FY24 were in that digital format, and then fall we saw that increase to 80%. And the other thing with increasing IA and other digital offerings is that we're able to continue to reduce the cost to our students. So in academic year 2023 and 2024, These efforts have saved students approximately $8.3 million. Let's see, some of you might remember this timeline. We've shared it a few different times, but just to go over it really quick, this timeline captures our EA journey and where it began about 2 years ago. We started exploring EA by attending conferences, connecting with peers, and engaging with vendors to better understand the model. And then in the late fall of 2023, after sharing our findings with UNM leadership, we received approval to collaborate with a group of campus stakeholders. This group included representatives from the Provost's office, IT, university libraries, and faculty senate. And then with stakeholder approval, we expanded outreach efforts last spring, holding campus engagements and conducting surveys with students and faculty toward the end of the semester. And if you're interested in seeing some of the key highlights from those surveys, we do have that information at the end of this presentation as an appendix. So you'll be able to review that once you receive the presentation. I will send that over to Teresa and Chris after this meeting today. So let's talk about the planned EA program for UNM. So let's see, we are planning an implementation for fall of 2025, and the program will be for all Albuquerque campus undergraduate students, regardless of number of enrolled credit hours. It'll be a flat rate per semester of $279, and this is right now for the 2025-2026 academic year. So we will work with our vendor RedShelf to evaluate that base price every single year. And what they will do is look at the information from that year on the mix of materials that we have. So mix of digital, print, and use of OER, and if no materials are required. So the more we see digital in the program, or the more OER use, or just classes not requiring materials, we will continue to see that rate start to go down. And with this program, faculty still get to choose the course materials and formats they want to use. Payments would be processed through the bursar as a bookstore charge. And the reason we include this in here as a piece of information is that we have been asked before, like, is this going to be part of tuition, or is this going to be part of student fees? It will not. It's going to be processed very similar to how it is right now with inclusive access, in that it'll be done as a bookstore charge. And then the model that we are going to be moving forward with is called a cascading EA model. And this is fairly new. One of our peer institutions, CU Boulder, just rolled it out last year and seen a lot of success with it. And what it does is it allows flexibility to students to opt out of EA and then select course materials on what we would consider an a la carte basis through IA. And with this, students would have different options for opting out. So to kind of go through that, how does the cascading EA work? So students can choose to keep either all, some, or none of their automatically provided materials. And what's going to happen is in Canvas, when they go to their bookshelf to see their materials, they will have a screen that pops up similar to what you see right here. And they're going to be able to see what it looks like based upon their own class schedule. So in that first column, you will see, they will see the bundled rate if they chose to keep all their course materials. So that's that $279 rate. If they decide to opt out of EA, they'll be able to select their individual course materials through what we're going to call Book Access Select. So in this example, you'll see that their class schedule with the courses, the required course materials that they have, that price is more expensive than the bundled price. But they will also see if it's lower. So if they see that this is lower, we absolutely want students to select that, because chances are it might be that they only have 1 or 2 of their classes that are requiring course materials. And then, of course, they can choose, and you see that third column, they can choose to opt out at all. So what this easy-to-use price comparison screen helps them with is decide exactly which level of participation makes the most financial sense for them. And then students will be able to opt in and out up until that semester add drop date. So quick recap, some benefits we talked about: affordability, convenience, equitable, and sustainability. And where is it going? Well, by the end of FY24, we know there were at least 355 EA accounts programs across U.S. higher education, and predictions have EA programs as high as 845 by the end of FY28. And just a quick quote here from academic researcher and course materials expert Michael Moore, Dr. Michael Moore. He says, in his opinion, it's truly the future of course materials acquisition and delivery. And then our implementation timeline. So we are here in that purple zone. So January. So what we're currently doing is working with UNM IT and our vendor partner RedShelf to finalize the platform upgrade needed for the EA transition. And then we're also finalizing communications and materials for the transition. And then we're continuing campus-wide engagements and individual meetings such as this to explain the program and answer any questions that you have. And then the focus for the spring, and you'll see this with really the February and March timelines, is that there'll be continued communications and the development of resources to help with the transition to a targeted launch in the fall. And some of those resources are going to be how-to tools to help students be able to navigate the bookshelf in Canvas, as well as how to opt out. So with that, I know we did this as a question slide, and I think we're still holding questions like we did last time, Chris. Is that correct?
Can you repeat your question, Alicia?
Yeah.
Oh, about questions, Q&A?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, if that's okay, because I know Jennifer has to leave by, I think it's 4:40, so.
I have a kid I need to pick up from school, so I commandeered this PowerPoint. I'm sorry, Alicia.
No problem. I will, in fact, I can stop sharing. For anyone interested, when you do get the PowerPoint, that QR code there takes you to our FAQs. So just so you're aware. And I will stop share, and that way, there we go. Sorry.
Alicia,
see my screen?
yeah, Alicia, can you put a link also in the chat for the FAQ? If that's possible. Sorry, Jennifer, go ahead.
No problem. Thanks, everybody, for giving me some time to listen to some of the research that I've done. I want to talk about OER at UNM, stuff we've been doing with free and open materials, some research we've done at UNM on textbooks through the library, and then a little bit about automatic textbook billing. So as we all know, textbook affordability is a big deal, and textbooks have been rising at 3 to 4 times the rate of inflation for a while now. So at UNM, who am I? Why am I here? So I'm the Open Educational Resources Librarian. Like Alicia said, these are OER are openly open and free materials that, depending on the license, faculty can adapt them freely for their students. I'm also the principal investigator on an OER grant from the Department of Education to create an OER consortium in the state of New Mexico. I was hired in 2022. This is just a little rundown of some of the stuff that we've been able to do through the library to help grow OER. We're working with right now CNM and Santa Fe Community College. We've created a consortium, and they're sub-awardees on our grant, and they receive money to give to their faculty to create OER and integrate OER materials. So at UNM alone, we've impacted this school year, getting close to 8,000 students. Over the life of the next few years, including the grant, we're hopefully going to impact about 30,000 students. This first year, you got to remember, we started this in like 2022, 2024 to 2025, almost like $380,000 in savings. And then over the next 3 years, at least $1.5 million is what we're looking at. And so EA and automatic textbook billing and OER are often talked about a lot together, and that's because they have this in common. They're available on the first day of class, and they're also digital, but pretty much everything else about them is different. OER are free, openly licensed. Automatic, like publishers' textbooks are copyrighted. Access goes away after the course ends. OER students can have forever. OER teacher can adapt for their student populations. Publishers' textbooks prevent unauthorized use. Students can print up their books. If the teacher has a PDF, they can just print it up pretty easily with the printer, but a print and rental option may be available. Sometimes this is other schools. I'm not sure how it's going to go at UNM. So this does not directly apply to UNM. So because I have this grant, I talk with my program officer and I've told her about equitable access. And so they did give us some advice on what to tell UNM about, like how EA might impact the grant materials, like the things that people have created, through the grant. So when I first applied for the grant, we had this estimate of how much students were going to save, and now that all students are going to get charged and can opt out, it's going to change drastically. But so what the lawyer from the Department of Ed said, this is his guidance regarding EA right now and grantees. He said course materials funded through the grant are openly sourced and students are not required to pay into the equitable access model to access those materials. So the fact that they are available on RedShelf, maybe that's handy for students, but it's not open. It's still behind the closed platform and it won't respond to the outcomes of our grant. So I'm wondering, we're looking at saving students money, and with this new program, how are we going to calculate student savings? These are all just kind of questions I'm going to keep bringing up throughout the presentation to kind of get y'all thinking. We did do some textbook research at UNM in 2022. We sent out a survey to a third of the students. It was me, my dean, and then another librarian, Holly Serbaugh. We looked at the role textbooks played in students' careers. We found that less than $300, like 64% of students were spending less than $300, which is different already from the numbers that the bookstore has given us. 35% were paying more than $300 who answered the survey. The students, even though more of them were paying less than $300, more of them viewed the cost as unreasonable. And then there's consequences that we were able to analyze regarding paying for textbooks. So like 100 of our 315 students who responded said they experienced difficulty meeting their basic needs to pay for textbooks. They earned a lower grade than they expected, took fewer courses. And then down here, 18 students or 6% of the students who responded ended up having to change their major. So I did a little bit of research. So this is just kind of a look at, it's kind of a different visual representation. Like the bookstore, Alicia had this in her presentation, but it's kind of hard to look at on a slide. So the National Association of College Stores did their survey 2022-2023 school year. Students were spending $285 in 1 year at college bookstores. And so this proposed flat rate textbook charge is $279 a semester, which is about double what students were already paying at the bookstore, like on average. So there have also been other researchers who have said that this price point of like $250 to $300 is actually just kind of the going rate for these programs. So I want to know exactly how is UNM's equitable access price calculated. I don't know if other people would like to know that, but I want to see the formula. I also did research on, this is student experience surveys on automatic textbook billing. These were a couple of small scale surveys, one by an OER librarian and then another at a small public liberal arts college. They found that students didn't know they could opt out of the charge. Over half of the students didn't believe automatic textbook billing saved them money. They didn't opt out because it was easier. Saving money was the 6th most common reason they stayed enrolled. And then they found students preferred not to be automatically billed according to these couple of 2 surveys. So I have them linked in my presentation, and then I think Chris or someone's going to share them. I linked back to all the stuff that I have. So another question that I have is, how is UNM going to ensure that students understand their textbook choices? Another aspect of equitable access and this shift to digital, which is great. I love digital materials. But course material ordering is undergoing big changes, significant changes based like from when we used to order print-based textbooks. Like the way that the ordering is happening is changing hands. It's not the faculty going to the bookstore. It's getting made at higher and higher levels. And like Alicia mentioned, it is growing. Automatic textbook billing is reaching double-digit penetration rates in introductory level classes. But it's also, according to this survey by these two researchers from Bayview Analytics, inclusive access has substantially altered the options available to faculty. So I'm wondering, how is flat rate automatic textbook billing going to affect academic freedom? And then I also found another study. This is from an inclusive access study, and it was in Tennessee. There was 47,000 students who used inclusive access across 13 colleges. This study, this is inclusive access. So this is like a course by course basis. It's not equitable access where it's the whole campus, but these researchers found no statistically, that's hard to say, significant difference in the success rate for students overall, or for students that are classified as non-white, Pell eligible, or adult learners over the age of 25. I'm talking fast because I got to get my kid. So I'm wondering, how does the flat rate system actually impact student outcomes? There's also automatic textbook billing contracts. So the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resources Coalition has this large database of equitable access contracts. And then someone from PIRG analyzed all the contracts and presented the findings. And they found that nearly half of these contracts, which, well, at one point there was 140 and now they have more. They got them through FOIA requests. Half of the automatic billing contracts reviewed did not fully disclose their discount structure. Some contracts had quotas where a certain number of students had to stay in the program for the savings to continue. They also found that there were clauses that allowed for the publisher to veto marketing materials. 33% of these contracts had the potential for annual uncapped price increases. And then also 1/5 of automatic textbook billing programs had caps on the number of students who could obtain print materials. So these things are all just sort of like hidden in these contracts. And so I'm wondering, what's UNM's plan for negotiating the fairest contract for our students? These are different critiques of automatic textbook billing that I found in different research articles. Textbook publishers often capitalize on their print price. I gotta look at the time. Okay, I'm doing good. When they're calculating the savings, a lot of times publishers capitalize on their print prices to show how students are saving money off of the full price materials. But if the students were never going to buy the materials at the bookstore, does the savings actually exist? That's one critique. Another is there could be restrictions with the text in terms of annotation, how to store the materials, how to get them offline. Do they have access after the semester ends? There's also publishers can lure colleges into this model using an initial contract with steep discounts and later increase prices once we become dependent on them. That's another critique. Inclusive access models may also reduce competition by providing exclusive contracts to large publishers, crowding out smaller, higher quality competitors. And then also, our students or adults, critics point out that inclusive access denies students the choice of how to spend their limited money. So I'm wondering, could a request for proposals from other platform vendors besides RedShelf result in more competitive terms? Lastly, I took a look at the bookstore's research. This is the slide from the November presentation to Dean's Council. It cites Michael Moore as an authority. He also worked for years in college bookstores. Is that a conflict of interest? Is that also why his research hasn't been peer reviewed? His research is cited in McGraw-Hill's and Barnes and Noble's marketing, but then when you go to find the research, it's been self-published in an open repository, which I love open repositories, but they just haven't gone through a peer review process. So I'm wondering why. And I'm wondering, do we need to conduct more research before moving forward? And I made this Padlet. If you all would like to, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll put the Padlet, well, here. You can, I guess, try this code. I'm going to stick the link in the chat. But that's pretty much it. And then my presentation had also the all the research on the works cited side. So you'll get access to that too. Questions?
I know you all have been asking a lot of good questions in the chat, and Lisa, you've been doing a really good job, and Jennifer of responding to things and with lightning speed. Laura.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to use Zoom on my phone, which is only working
Oh, yes.
sometimes. I know that one of the questions that we had over at my college was that like we worked really hard to have a lot of materials be free through the library. And so we were just wondering, like, then students that we were worried that it seemed like then there would be student undergrads who currently pay nothing for their materials that then now have to start paying the 250. And I don't know, I guess maybe I'm a little confused about that part of it.
I can answer that. So it's a good question. If students have their materials either, OER or other options that their instructor has decided to use, they absolutely can opt out of EA. And in fact, that's going to be the most important thing with any kind of rollout, is going to be that communication and transparency to the students. And so we understand that there's students that have stated with inclusive access, maybe they didn't know how to opt out. We know that traditional models of communication are not going to work. We are going to have to be really thoughtful about how we can engage the students in getting them that information so they know how to opt out in those instances where it does not make financial sense for them and they have their materials provided for them in other ways. So that would be our goal.
Other questions?
I have a question about how easy it is to opt out, because the last semester my students tried and I myself read the email. It was very large, very long, confusing, and it wasn't easy. So this should be somehow improved. Instruction shouldn't last and last and last when to the degree you forget what it was at the beginning.
Yeah, no, very, very, very good question. And so with one of the things that we're working on right now with our vendor partner is and with UNMIT is an upgrade to the platform that we are using. We recognize that the old platform does have some of its challenges, so we are going to be upgrading that platform for an EA rollout, and so it should be a lot smoother to be able to navigate. And then we will definitely make sure we have those how-to videos for both students and for faculty on how to use it.
And just in relation to that too, Alicia, just so you all know, Alicia invited me to be on a steering committee for EA, for the EA program. So it's a group of people on campus talking about what this rollout would look like and that kind of thing. And Steve, I see your hand. Let me just pose to make sure I get Nair's question in here. Nair asks in the chat, why, quote, but why can't students opt in? So I think the question is, why is opt out being proposed versus opt in?
Yep, I can answer that too. So we've been asked that through this process, and currently EA models out there to be able to get the best, how to say it, so opt-out models, what they do is they leverage economies of scale to negotiate lower costs for course materials. So think of it like large retailers like a Walmart or a Costco who are able to negotiate bulk purchase discounts with suppliers. And so EA models are typically set up to maximize participation to be able to pass off the cost savings to as many students as it can. And that's typically why they are opt out.
I'm just pointing to in the chat related to your question, Nair, or the opt out, opt in question. It looks like Jennifer posted a link to a webinar on opt in models. So that could be interesting to look at. Steve.
Yes. So my name is Steve Cavanis. I'm a professor of chemistry and chemical biology. In interest of full disclosure, I am also one of the people working on online educational resources as part of Jennifer Jordan's grant from the Department of Education. What I principally want to talk about, the reason I got involved in this in the first place is that as someone who teaches junior and senior level STEM majors, it is extremely frustrating to deal with people who have been using the inclusive access model, which I have used when teaching freshman courses, and find that these same students, when they reach their junior and senior years, no longer have those textbooks. Well, in the STEM disciplines, we typically sequence our courses deliberately because they build on one another. And to have a student whose textbook expired and they can no longer access it is actually a serious problem, and not something that the inclusive access people have yet addressed to my satisfaction. They've increased in some cases, the rental period for a longer period of time, but frankly, it needs to be something that doesn't expire. The other thing that I don't believe Jennifer brought up, perhaps out of modesty, but I know it is a concern to her, and it's a concern to me. That is, if we go with this new model, how is that going to affect the incentive of instructors across campus to continue adopting OERs? Are they going to look around and say, well, as long as this stuff is averaged out, then if I eliminate commercial textbooks from my course, the actual savings to my students is going to be relatively modest. I don't know that I have seen any studies on that, this being a relatively new development, but I think it is a legitimate concern. I think what we ought to be doing is putting our university resources and influence into reducing cost for digital on-demand materials, but they ought to be materials that are persistent. They ought to be materials that have absolutely minimal costs. And frankly, a lot of what we are hearing from the publishers seem to be more designed to keep them from losing their fairly substantial profits than anything else. And finally, I don't think we need to remain hostage to some of these publishing houses. There are a number of good academic publishing houses that produce relatively inexpensive textbooks. And by buying into this Red Shelf contract, we are very much encouraging the big fish to continue to push the smaller, less expensive fish out of the pond. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions? FS, Diana.
Just a quick question. So our program has made the conscious decision to utilize a textbook for multiple courses. It's a classic textbook in the nutrition program. So how would that be affected? Are they going to be having to pay every semester?
I'll let Lisa handle that one.
I mean, as if the student were to opt out of the program, if it was more beneficial to them, then no, they would not. Yes, this is set up as an every semester charge, bookstore charge. So you're saying you use one textbook for the entire year, correct?
Yeah, so one course is a sequence course, so they use it for both semesters, and then we've made the decision there's good material in that textbook to utilize in 2 other courses. And so the students can use one textbook for 4 courses, essentially.
Well,
Is this
really
a
cool.
physical? Yeah, is this a physical textbook?
So some students have used it as a hard copy, and other students have used it as an inclusive access. So I guess they opt in for like a year, but unless they're taking all 4 courses in that 1 year, they might not be, they may have to do it for a semester and a half, or maybe even 2 semesters. I mean, sorry, 3 semesters or 4 semesters if they're not doing it all within the same academic year.
Okay, so any materials that are print in the program, the students, of course, would get to keep. And as we kind of mentioned, the higher volume of digital or, open resource materials that a program has, the more benefits we're going to see with that reduction in cost. But there are some of the publishers, might have those extended use, so the additional rental for the subscriptions. And Lisa, didn't you recently, you got some more information on that?
On the as far as the courseware and
Yes.
the life of those. I mean, they're the major publishers, and their courseware usually are the ones that do have the finite amount of time that they're available. There are certain digital materials that do allow themselves to be downloaded and kept on a device and read and kept after the term is over. But most of the digital courseware, like McGraw-Hill Connect or Pearson MyLab, is used only for a semester. Then access to those materials do expire once they're over.
Olivia.
I heard discussion about how the old platform that the bookstore uses is got some limitations and needs to be updated. So my first question is about whether this proposed change bundles some of that cost into upgrading a platform. And then my second question has to do with changes in revenue. I'm curious if the proposed model brings in more revenue for the bookstore and or more revenue for UNM. Thank you.
So I can take the revenue question, and then Lisa, if you want to talk a little bit about the changes to the platform, we can do that. And so just some information for some folks here. It's probably important to clarify that the UNM bookstore operates as a not-for-profit auxiliary of the university. So it is a university-operated bookstore. And so what this means is that its primary purpose isn't to generate profit, but rather to serve the needs of the campus community. And for the bookstore, any funds that exceed what's required for day-to-day operations are reinvested directly back into the university to support its broader mission. So whether that's improving services, enhancing campus resources, or keeping costs affordable for students by, implementing programs like IA, that is what its purpose is. And so this particular program is not designed as a revenue generator for the bookstore, but more as a student-centered initiative aimed at reducing the financial and logistical barriers in accessing course materials.
Can I
And then as far,
oh,
Yep.
sorry, Alicia, is it okay if I just follow up to that first question? Olivia, your question was one that I had, and then I posed directly to the VP of Finance, Teresa Konstantinidis in Scholes Hall. And I just met with her yesterday. And she said more money for the bookstore is not the driver. Retention and strengthening retention and graduating more students is. And I asked her if I could quote her on that. She said yes. She did say, as Alicia said, like the bookstore isn't meant to be a profit-making entity like, say, Barnes and Nobles. She said the goal, and maybe Lisa, let me know if I'm misstating, but basically the goal of the bookstore isn't necessarily the goal of the bookstore is to cover costs. Like, for example, it's my understanding they just had to replace their roof. But then Teresa did also say if we want to do more in terms of the bookstore, then you would need more money if you wanted the bookstore to be able to do more. I know also Teresa mentioned, and maybe this is too much of a tangent, but Lisa, maybe you also know, and again, maybe it's too much of a tangent. I think the footprint of the bookstore is being reevaluated, like how much space the bookstore actually needs and what might be done with that space. So I just wanted to add that about revenue. Go ahead. Olivia, you had another question, so I wanted to make sure that got answered or addressed.
Thanks, Chris. I think Lisa was gonna.
Yeah, I was going to ask Lisa just to talk about the platform upgrade.
Right.
Just a little bit more detail around
it was
that.
so many few minutes ago, so I'm trying to remember. So you were asking, you mentioned the platform changes, but I thought there was something related to cost in there. Olivia, do you mind just rephrasing it really quickly for me?
Sure. Yeah, I was just curious if the new model adoption included some of those costs, right, to make ends meet to afford the platform upgrade, if you will.
No, the platform upgrade did not come associated with costs. So that was not a part of any of the calculation for any of the fees or anything that we've done around this model.
And so then as a follow-up to that, we could upgrade the platform without making this change?
That was what I was just going to say. So regardless of, where we're at with EA, the platform upgrade was going to happen anyway. We recognized that we needed to have that as a new tool because there are some enhanced navigation features in it. Additionally, with that platform upgrade, we're also going to be working with a software vendor called Watchman to be able to do automatic billing. And by that, I mean, right now with Inclusive Access, students are able to, they're able to add drop classes, right, for those add drop dates, but we don't actually go back and bill them for Inclusive Access till a few weeks after that date. So then students don't even see that till usually right now, like late September? Is that correct, Lisa? Something along those lines. And so because we're having to do it as a manual process. And so with working with Watchman and to be able to include that automated billing, students will be able to see when they add or drop a class, they'll be able, if that has Inclusive Access, they'll be able to see those come off or get added on right away with their Bursars account. And so that is something else that's going to be improved regardless.
let me just raise everyone's awareness. So we have 3 minutes left. I did want to let you know that Nancy and Teresa notified me we do not have any public comment. I do want to pose, and I mean, basically this would probably be the last question that we have time for. Matt Goodwin posed his question in the chat. Quick question, which departments students benefit most from this program?
So honestly, from what we saw with the survey that we conducted last spring, so it was a pretty limited survey. We had just under 400 undergraduate students who had completed it. And those students, when we broke it down by what they reported for their costs of materials for the year, and then broke it out by their degree program, it kind of was all over the place. Like it really didn't stand out like, hey, it's only the business students, or hey, it's only the engineering students. We saw a lot more, I think, variability than what we actually anticipated with it. We are going to share those survey results on the website. And I just remembered, Chris, you asked me to put that in the chat. Let me do that before we leave. So that webpage has all the FAQs. We'll make sure we get those survey results up. It might not be tonight, but we'll make sure we have those up for Wednesday. Additionally, we do have a town hall scheduled for this Thursday as well. A lot of what you saw today is still going to be presented at that town hall, but that town hall is open to faculty, staff, and students, and we're really aggressively promoting it, especially for our students to be able to attend, to get that information. So before I forget, let me find that and put it in the link.
Okay, Alicia, I'm putting the town hall link in just so you know. Yeah, like Lisa, I think it's like, and I think I said this at the beginning, I think it's so great that we can ask Alicia and Lisa and Jennifer these questions, because I think it only helps to improve the program and what we might want to implement for students. If any of you have any additional questions, obviously, I'm sure Alicia and Lisa and Jennifer would welcome your questions directly to them, but also, feel free to reach out to me. I am continuing to talk with Alicia's office about this, President Stokes, the provost, parents and students. I know the students, the president of ASUNM, they'll have a presentation on equitable access. Am I right about that, Alicia? Tomorrow, ASUNM will receive a presentation from you all on the program, right?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what the student leadership's questions are, that kind of thing.
I'm sorry, I have a really quick question. This is Teresa Neely. I'm from the University Libraries.
Sure,
I'm
Teresa.
wondering, given the initial slide that had the timeline on it, that the president and administration has already approved this? If it's already, is it already a done deal? Is this backpedaling to give information after the fact? I'm just trying to understand.
Teresa, that was my question as well.
Okay.
And when I have talked to both the provost and the president, I don't, let me put it this way. As I understand, and Alicia, correct me on this if I'm wrong, the contract has not been signed, and it would need to be signed in February. I don't know when in February, but I suggested that A, we wait to hear from you all at this meeting, but also B, wait to hear from people at the town hall, because I think you all ask really good questions. And I think Alicia would agree with me that it helps us all think through what's important to this. Like, for example, and Alicia, I just sent this to you in a message since we haven't talked yet. We'd want to get student advisors involved in this process because they're the ones that, help students navigate that system. So that's another example of we'd want to make sure that was ready to go. We'd likely, as I understand, want to make sure the platform is ready to go, right? Like the technical aspects. So Teresa, I guess and Alicia, obviously you can respond too, but my first question to the provost was, is this a done deal? And I was upset about it, that it might have been a done deal without faculty having more input, because I want faculty to have more input on everything. And so it's the contract, the ink is not wet. The contract has not been signed.
Thank you. That's good to know.
And just kind of following up to what Chris said, that is correct. That nothing has been signed. We are continuing engagements to get more feedback. We did receive sort of that initial approval from UNM leadership to move forward with implementation, and that happened back late fall. And a lot of that was through some of the feedback and engagements that we had done back in the spring and like mid to late spring of last year. And so taking that feedback, taking the survey results, that was all the information that we had supplied. And so they did ask us to go back and have these engagements so that way we can figure out what would be a best rollout. So, the plan is still to move forward with fall of 2025, but there's so many other things that have to happen to get that in place. And so making sure that we're answering questions, making sure we're working with IT, there's a lot of moving parts. So, yeah, we're gonna keep, doing what we can to put the information out there, answer your questions, and work with leadership on what those next steps might be.
I want to thank you all for staying 5 minutes over. I owe you 5 minutes, and I promise not to jam pack the agenda for the rest of our faculty senate meetings this semester. And in February, for sure, we'll have time for breakout rooms among senators for their various topics. I want to thank Alicia and Lisa and Jennifer for coming, because I know how much energy it takes to come to a 2-hour meeting and answer all these great questions from all of you. And I hope you all will continue to ask questions, because I think it's only going to, if the administration ultimately signs off on it, I think it's only going to make the transition smoother, right? Or to adding this option. But again, reach out to me if you have additional questions, and I'll make sure that those questions get asked at the highest levels. So, okay, I think that's it. So I hope you all have a good Tuesday night, and we'll see you next month, if not before. Bye all.